Welcome back, everyone. Ready for another deep dive? Today, we're cracking open the story behind a brand that's practically synonymous with refreshment Coca-Cola.
It's funny. You see those red cans and bottles everywhere, but most people don't know the half of it.
Right. I mean, sure, we know the taste. But the journey of how this drink went from a pharmacist's concoction to a global icon, that's something I'm ready to dive into.
Well, buckle up, because this is a story with more twists and turns than a ribbon candy factory.
Okay, so let's rewind the clock. We're talking late 19th century Atlanta, Georgia. John Stick Pemberton, a pharmacist, is tinkering away and ends up creating this drink he markets as a health tonic. Can you imagine ordering a Coca-Cola for your health back then?
Oh, absolutely. It's a wild thought considering the health debates around sugary drinks today. But in those days, it was all about invigoration and energy boosts. And speaking of the name, it's literally taken straight from its original ingredients, coca leaves and cola nuts.
So that's where it comes from. Clever.
And that iconic script. That was Pemberton's bookkeeper, Frank Mason Robinson. Talk about a multi-talented guy. But the real turning point, the one that launched Coca-Cola into the stratosphere, was when Asa Candler, a savvy businessman, got his hands on the business.
Candler.
Oh.
Now, that's a name I've heard before in connection with Coke's early days. Something about his marketing, right?
Oh, he was a visionary. He was doing things that were unheard of back then, giving out free samples, plastering ads everywhere. It was a marketing blitz before people even knew what a marketing blitz was.
That actually explains those free taste tests you still see today at events and such. So free Coke has been around longer than I thought.
Oh, way longer. It was one of Candler's genius moves. Get people to try it and they'll be hooked. But to be fair to Coca-Cola, it wasn't just freebies. Their entire branding strategy was revolutionary.
Yeah, that red and white, the iconic contoured bottle. Those aren't just random design choices, are they?
Not at all. It's all carefully crafted to be instantly recognizable, memorable. And then, of course, there are those slogans. It's the real thing. Taste the feeling. They stick with you, don't they?
They really do. You hear them once, and they're basically earworms for life.
Yeah.
But there's something more to it, right? Like Coca-Cola ads always seem to hit you in the feels, not just sell you a drink.
You're picking up on something crucial there. Coca-Cola is a master at tapping into emotions, happiness, nostalgia, togetherness. Those heartwarming holiday commercials, for example, they're not just selling soda, they're selling a feeling, a connection to good memories.
I've got to admit, I do get a little warm and fuzzy seeing those polar bears every Christmas. But selling a feeling, that's a whole other level of marketing genius.
Oh, and speaking of Christmas and warm fuzzies, did you know that Coca-Cola played a huge role in shaping the modern image of Santa Claus?
Wait, seriously, I had no idea. Tell me more about that.
So, before the 1930s, the image of Santa was all over the place. Different regions, different interpretations. But then Coca-Cola starts running these Christmas campaigns, and every year there he is, jolly old Saint Nick in that bright red suit. And over time, that image stuck.
Wow, I never realized how much influence a brand could have on something as ingrained in our culture as Santa Claus. It really makes you think about the power of a well-crafted marketing campaign. But let's be real, Coca-Cola's success goes way beyond clever advertising. I mean, it's practically a global empire at this point.
Oh, absolutely. We're talking about a drink that's sold in over 200 countries. It's one of the most widely distributed products on the planet. And that kind of global presence, well, it comes with both immense economic influence and a hefty dose of cultural impact. It's kind of mind-blowing when you think about it. For a lot of people around the world, Coca-Cola isn't just a drink. It's like this symbol of America, of globalization. It pops up in movies, music, art, you name it.
You're right, it's everywhere. I mean, how many times have we seen that iconic red can or bottle in a movie? It's almost like product placement on autopilot at this point.
Exactly. But all this global success, it hasn't come without a side of controversy, especially when you start talking about health and the environment.
Yeah, that's the elephant in the room, isn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, as much as we love that fizzy sweetness, there's no denying the health concerns around sugary drinks. And then there's the whole environmental impact, the plastic waste, the water usage.
Those are huge issues, and they've definitely put Coca-Cola under the microscope. The very things that make it so popular, the sweet taste, the convenience, how cheap it is, those are the same things that have sparked worries about obesity, diabetes, all that.
So how has Coca-Cola actually responded to these criticisms? Have they just brushed them aside, or have they taken steps to address those concerns?
Well, on the health front, they've definitely tried to offer alternatives. Think Diet Coke, Coca-Cola Zero Sugar. Those are aimed at people watching their sugar intake.
Right, so at least they're acknowledging the need for healthier options. And I guess expanding their product line to include bottled water, juices, those kinds of things also shows they're trying to diversify.
Exactly. They're trying to cater to a broader range of tastes and health preferences. But what about the environmental side of things? What are they doing to lighten their footprint?
Yeah, that's what I'm really curious about. Because recycling those cans and bottles can only go so far, right?
Right, you need to tackle the problem at its source. They've rolled out some recycling programs, and there are initiatives aimed at using less plastic. They've even set goals for reducing water usage and giving back water to the communities where they operate.
Sounds promising.
Yeah.
But it's hard to know how effective those efforts truly are. Like, their goal of 100% recyclable packaging by 2030 is a great ambition. But are they moving fast enough?
You're right to be skeptical, and some critics argue that even with these initiatives, they're not doing enough. Switching to different packaging materials, like those plant-based bottles, may seem like a solution.
But those materials can come with their own environmental costs.
Right.
It's like a never-ending cycle.
It's complicated for sure. And then there's the water usage issue, especially in places where water is already scarce. Critics are saying Coca-Cola needs to step up their game and ensure their operations aren't making those shortages worse.
It seems like they're in a tough spot, trying to be a responsible company while still keeping their business thriving. But, let's shift gears a bit. We've talked about the impact on health and the environment, but I'm curious about Coca-Cola's cultural influence. We touched on it earlier, but I'd love to explore how it became such a cultural icon.
It's a good question. Think about how Coca-Cola shows up in art, music, movies. It's often used as a shortcut, a visual symbol for American culture. You see in Andy Warhol's famous pop art prints, in street art murals today.
Oh yeah, those Warhol prints are iconic. But it goes beyond just visual art, doesn't it?
Absolutely. In music, you hear Coca-Cola mentioned in lyrics across so many genres, from rock and roll to hip-hop to country. It's woven into the fabric of our musical landscape.
It's true. You can't escape it. And what about movies? It feels like every other film has a scene where people are sharing a Coke, bonding over it.
It's a classic trope, Coca-Cola on the big screen, usually tied to those ideas of Americana, happiness, shared experiences. It reinforces that sense of connection and belonging.
It's interesting, though. Those images often give you that warm, fuzzy feeling. But some people see Coca-Cola's cultural influence in a different light, a more critical one.
You're hitting the nail on the head. There are critics who see Coca-Cola as a symbol of consumerism and globalization. They worry that because it's available everywhere, it's leading to a kind of homogenization of cultures.
Like it's wiping out local traditions and creating this global monoculture. That's a heavy thought.
It is, and it raises questions about the impact of big brands on cultural diversity. It's a complex issue with valid points on both sides.
It's pretty mind-blowing how something as seemingly simple as a soft drink can be loaded with so much cultural baggage. It really makes you think about the ripple effects of what we consume.
And that's the power of these deep dives. We peel back the layers of things we often take for granted and start to see the intricate web of connections they have to our lives and the world around us.
It really is amazing how much there is to discover when you start digging deeper into something we all thought we knew. So we've covered Coca-Cola's past and its present, but what about the future? How's this giant company adapting to what people want today and to a world that's worried about health and sustainability?
That's the big question, isn't it? They've built this whole empire on sugary drinks, but people are changing their habits. And the world is starting to realize that how much we consume has consequences for the environment.
Yeah, that's a tough spot to be in. So what are they doing about it?
Well, one big strategy is they're branching out, going beyond soda. They're offering bottled water, teas, juices, sports drinks, even coffee.
So covering all their bases, giving people more options that fit with healthier lifestyles and just different tastes in general, makes sense. Can't just stick to the same old formulas forever,
Yeah.
right?
Exactly. And they're not only adding new categories, they're also changing things up within their existing lines, like lower sugar versions of their classics, even playing around with different sweeteners and new flavors.
Trying to appeal to everyone, but without losing that Coca-Cola essence. What about transparency? Are they being more upfront about what's in their drinks? Because people really care about that these days.
Definitely. You'll see more information about ingredients and nutrition now, which is what consumers are demanding. People want to know what they're putting into their bodies and make informed choices.
Right, knowledge is power, as they say. But what about the environmental impact we discussed earlier? All the concerns about plastic waste and using too much water. Are they making any real headway on those fronts?
They're definitely pouring resources into sustainability. Like we said before, they're trying to use less plastic, supporting recycling, looking into alternative materials for bottles, like those plant-based ones.
Plant-based bottles, that's interesting. But is it enough?
That's the debate, isn't it? Some people see those efforts as genuine, a real step in the right direction, while others might say it's just greenwashing, like they're just trying to look good without making any big changes.
What do you think?
It's tricky. I mean, there's no denying that Coca-Cola, like a lot of huge companies, still has a long way to go when it comes to being truly environmentally responsible.
Yeah, there's always more they could do.
Right. But I do think they're realizing more and more that to be successful in the long run, they've got to be sustainable. The decisions they make in the next few years, well, those will have a major impact, not only on their own company, but on the world. It's a huge responsibility.
No pressure. Right. So basically they're juggling consumer demands, environmental concerns, and trying to stay profitable all at the same time, like solving a giant puzzle.
Exactly. And what's really interesting is that Coca-Cola's story is kind of like a mini version of globalization itself. All the innovation, the opportunities, the challenges, and the big questions about responsibility.
Makes you realize that even something as simple as a soft drink can open up a whole world of topics. History, culture, economics, the future of the planet.
And that's what makes these deep dives so fascinating. We uncover these unexpected links between what we consume, the companies that make those things, and the world we all live in.
It's all connected. Well, as we wrap up our Coca-Cola adventure, I'm left wondering, can a company this big, this influential, truly balance making money with doing good?
It's a question we all have to wrestle with as consumers. Coca-Cola's journey from its humble start to this global powerhouse is a reminder that our choices matter. What we buy, what we support, it all has an impact. And not just on us as individuals, it reaches far beyond that.
That's the great point to end on. To all our listeners, keep exploring, keep asking questions, and keep thinking about the impact of your choices. And thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the world of Coca-Cola. Until next time, keep diving deep.